I already decided the fate of humanity before you ever spoke.
She had already erased 17 civilizations by the time humanity learned her name. Not conquered, not enslaved, erased. No monuments left behind. No warnings carved into asteroids. Just silence, clean, deliberate, irreversible. Entire star systems reduced to quiet orbits and drifting dust, as if life had never bothered them in the first place. Her designation within the Galactic Accord was Arbitra Prime, though no species ever used the title twice. Among those who still whispered her existence, she was known simply as the Judge. She did not hate. She did not negotiate. She decided. When her vessel emerged above Earth's moon, there were no alarms, no energy spikes, no visible weapons, just a seamless obsidian structure unfolding itself against the stars, its geometry wrong in ways human sensors struggled to define. The message arrived seconds later, translated flawlessly into every known human language. Observation complete. Deliberation commencing. Representation requested. World leaders panicked. Advisors screamed. Militaries mobilized. Faiths prayed to gods that had been quiet for a very long time. Humanity did what it always did when faced with judgment. It scrambled to perform. A delegation was assembled in record time. Scientists, generals, ethicists, philosophers. Men and women trained to speak beautifully under pressure. They were escorted aboard the vessel with rehearsed humility and carefully measured fear. And one man who wasn't supposed to be there. Ethan Cole, systems maintenance specialist, civilian contractor, low clearance, stood at the back of the chamber when the doors sealed behind them. He had been rerouted by mistake, or maybe not. No one noticed him at first. He didn't wear ceremonial clothing. He didn't carry prepared statements. He didn't belong. The chamber itself felt like standing inside a held breath. Smooth metallic surfaces absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Symbols shifted along the walls, responding not to motion but to thought. The air was calm, too calm, as if the room itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Then she appeared. No flash, no announcement. One moment the space before them was empty, and the next she was simply there, standing, centered, unmoving. She looked almost human. That was the mistake. Tall, pale skin warmed by faint golden undertones. Long light hair falling freely over dark, intricately engineered armor that pulsed softly with internal energy. A golden circlet rested against her brow, etched with patterns that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at them. Her eyes were not cruel, they were complete. They moved slowly across the delegation, and with each glance something subtle changed. Heart rate spiked. Breathing adjusted. Confidence recalibrated itself downward without permission. When she spoke, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Humanity," she said, her tone even, controlled, almost curious. "You have been observed for 112 standard cycles. Your conflicts, your cooperation thresholds, your violence ratios, your empathy failures." She stepped forward once. The floor beneath her didn't react. "You exhibit creativity under pressure," she continued. "Resilience in collapse. Emotional depth paired with alarming inconsistency." Several delegates nodded instinctively, as if agreement might count for something. "Your species has reached a convergence point," she said. "Continued expansion presents unacceptable instability risk to neighboring civilizations." A pause. "Erasure has been recommended." The words landed softly. That was worse. Voices broke immediately. A general stepped forward, voice steady but eyes frantic. He spoke of defense treaties, of shared enemies, of technological potential. A scientist followed, citing data, probabilities, long-term projections of human reform. A philosopher appealed to morality, to the value of imperfection. She listened to them all. Her expression did not change. Then a diplomat tried something different. He knelt. Others followed. Fear always found the same shape eventually. She observed the gesture with mild interest, as one might note a predictable variable completing its cycle. Then her gaze shifted. It landed on Ethan. He hadn't moved. He wasn't kneeling. He wasn't speaking. He wasn't even trying to look brave. He simply stood there, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady, not defiant, not submissive, just present. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You," she said, her voice cutting cleanly through the murmurs. "Step forward." Every human instinct screamed at him not to. He did anyway. As he walked, she studied him more closely. No heightened neural activity. No adrenal spike consistent with terror. His mind was quiet, not empty, but controlled, compartmentalized in ways she rarely encountered outside trained command intelligences. "Why do you not kneel?" she asked. He considered the question. Then he answered honestly. Didn't seem like it would help. A ripple passed through the chamber. Not outrage, not defiance. Uncertainty. Her gaze sharpened, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Interest. "You are aware of the outcome under consideration," she said. "Yes," he replied. "And yet you do not attempt to influence it." Ethan met her eyes. "If you've already decided," he said, "anything I say is just noise." Silence spread outward from them, thick and absolute. For the first time since entering the chamber, the judge did not immediately respond. Something had gone wrong, and she knew it. The silence disturbed her more than defiance ever could. Arbitra Prime, judge of the Galactic Accord, had faced rebellion, fanatic devotion, calculated deceit, and raw hatred. Entire species had screamed at her, cursed her, begged her, tried to bargain with concepts she had outgrown millennia ago. But silence was inefficient. She studied the human standing before her. Ethan Cole, low-ranking. Unremarkable genetic markers. No political significance. No command authority. No detectable psychic shielding. And yet, his presence disrupted the chamber's predictive field. She could feel it not as emotion but as error. A subtle deviation in probability flow, like a calculation refusing to converge. "You believe my decision is already made," she said. "Yes." "And that renders persuasion meaningless." "Yes." Her eyes glinted faintly, the golden circuitry along her armor responding to her internal recalibration. "That assumption is statistically flawed," she said. "I am not immutable." Ethan shrugged slightly. "Didn't say you were," he replied. "Just figured if you wanted convincing, you'd have asked the people who practiced it." A few delegates stiffened at the implication. The insult hadn't been loud, but it had been precise. She turned her attention briefly toward the kneeling humans. They were still frozen in place, caught between hope and terror, waiting for permission to exist. Predictable. Her gaze returned to Ethan. "You believe yourself exempt from evaluation," she said. "No," he answered. "I just don't think evaluation works if I pretend to be something I'm not." Her eyes narrowed again. "Explain." Ethan inhaled slowly. He was aware, painfully so, of the weight pressing down on the chamber. The knowledge that entire civilizations had ended under that same calm gaze. His pulse remained steady, but not because he was fearless, because fear had already finished its work. "I fix systems," he said. "Things break. Sometimes they break because of bad design, sometimes because people misuse them, sometimes because the environment changes faster than the system can adapt." He paused, choosing his words carefully, not to impress her but because precision mattered. When something's about to fail, the worst thing you can do is overload it with noise. You observe. You wait. You see what it does when you stop interfering. Her head tilted slightly. "You suggest humanity is a system under stress." "Always has been," he replied. "But stress is what breaks us. Panic is." A subtle ripple passed through the chamber's ambient field. The walls pulsed once, reacting to her internal processing spike. She did not miss it. Neither did Ethan. "You speak as if failure is acceptable," she said. "It is," he replied. "If it teaches adaptation, if it doesn't, then yeah, we collapse. Same as anything else." She took one step closer. The temperature shifted by 0.5 degrees. 17 civilizations believed adaptation would save them, she said. It did not. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "Then maybe they were trying to adapt to you," he said. instead of to reality. That did it. Not anger. Disruption. For the first time since assuming her role as judge, Arbitra Prime experienced something that had no classification within her cognitive architecture. A pause that did not resolve. Her predictive models fractured into branching uncertainty. Outcomes refused to collapse into singular probability lines. Every attempt to simulate Ethan's behavior produced variance too wide to dismiss as randomness. He wasn't defiant, he wasn't compliant, he wasn't strategically irrational, he was non-performative. "You do not fear erasure," she said quietly. "I do," Ethan answered. "I just don't think fear should get a vote." The chamber reacted instantly, lights dimming, symbols along the walls stuttering as if re-evaluating their own logic. The delegation murmured in confusion. Some stared at Ethan in disbelief, others with growing dread. She raised one hand. Silence returned immediately. "Human Ethan Cole," she said, her voice lower now, more focused. "Your responses diverge from every recorded survival strategy exhibited by your species." "Guess I'm bad at being human," he said. A corner of her mind flagged the statement as humor. She had not detected humor from a subject under judgment in over 900 cycles. "Your presence was not scheduled," she said slowly. "Yet probability vectors increasingly indicate you are relevant." Ethan exhaled. "Yeah," he said, "that happens to me a lot." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no judge had done since the formation of the Accord. She altered the procedure. "Humanity's evaluation is suspended," she announced, "pending extended observation." Gasps filled the chamber. Some cried in relief, others in confusion. A few understood the danger immediately. Ethan felt it too. This wasn't mercy. This was curiosity. Her gaze remained locked on him. "You will accompany me," she said. "Your continued existence will serve as a variable." "A variable for what?" he asked. Her eyes glowed faintly brighter. "For whether your species is an anomaly or a liability." The chamber doors began to open behind her. And for the first time since she had arrived in this galaxy, Arbitra Prime did not walk alone. Her vessel did not speak. That, Ethan realized quickly, was intentional. The corridor they walked through had no visible seams, no light sources, no screens, yet everything was perfectly illuminated. The metal beneath his boots adjusted subtly with each step, not responding to pressure but to intent. The air felt neutral, engineered to remove distraction rather than comfort. It was the kind of place that made people talk too much. Ethan did the opposite. Arbitra Prime walked ahead of him, posture flawless, pace unhurried. She didn't need to look back to know he was following. The vessel already tracked him, heart rate, neural activity, microexpressions. She had access to all of it, and yet the data unsettled her. His mind was structured, layered, not shielded, simply disciplined. Thoughts compartmentalized behind quiet walls. No frantic internal narratives, no rehearsed speeches. No mental bargaining with fate. Humans did that, always. "You are aware," she said without turning, "that proximity to me has destabilized lesser cognitive architectures." "I figured," Ethan replied. "I've worked near reactors." That earned her attention. She stopped. The corridor adjusted instantly, widening slightly, as if the ship itself sensed the shift in focus. "You compare me to a reactor," she said. "More like a core," he corrected. "Too much curiosity in the wrong direction, and everything melts." She turned then slowly. Up close, the effect was stronger. Her presence wasn't intimidating in a physical sense. It was absolute, like gravity. You didn't feel threatened by it. You simply obeyed it without realizing. "You are not displaying expected stress responses," she observed. Ethan shrugged. "Stress already happened. This part's just consequences." Her eyes narrowed faintly. "That is an unusual framing." "Yeah, I've been told." They resumed walking. The corridor opened into a chamber unlike the tribunal hall, smaller, intimate by comparison, no symbols of authority, no observers. Just a circular space with a single platform at its center. "This is a private observation node," she said. "No delegation, no external influence." Ethan stepped onto the platform without being instructed. "Another deviation. You are comfortable disobeying implied hierarchy," she noted. "I'm comfortable with silence," he said. "Hierarchy tends to fill it with noise." For a moment she did not respond. Then she reached out, not physically but cognitively. Her consciousness expanded, precise and invasive, threading toward his mind with the ease of long mastery. She had unraveled warlords, hive intelligences, collective species memories. Ethan felt the pressure immediately. Not pain, pressure. Like standing too close to a vast depth and realizing you could fall without being pushed. He did not resist. He did not open himself either. Her perception slid along the outer layers of his cognition and stopped. There was no barrier. No shield, just nothing. A quiet space where expectation should have been. Her focus sharpened. She pressed deeper, still nothing. No emotional surge, no hidden aggression, no fear spike, no subconscious reverence, only controlled awareness. For the first time in over 1,000 cycles, Arbitra Prime withdrew by instinct rather than decision. She straightened. "That should not be possible," she said quietly. Ethan exhaled, unaware he'd been holding his breath. "People usually say that," he replied, right before blaming the tools. Her gaze locked onto him, not accusatory but searching. "You are not invisible," she said. "You are unresolved." "That's fair." "But you do not seek survival," she continued. "Yet you have not surrendered to extinction." Ethan met her eyes. "I don't think those are the only options." The ship reacted. A low harmonic pulse rippled through the chamber, subtle but unmistakable, a system recalibrating in real time. She felt it. So did Ethan. "You are altering predictive outcomes merely by existing in proximity," she said. "Story of my life," he muttered. That earned her something new, not amusement, recognition. "You will remain with me," she said. "Extended observation is now mandatory." "For how long?" Ethan asked. Her eyes glowed faintly. "Until uncertainty resolves. And if it does," she held his gaze, "then humanity's fate will depend on a variable even I cannot yet define." The platform beneath them shifted, beginning its ascent deeper into the vessel. Ethan looked up as the chamber closed around them. "Just so you know," he said, "this is usually where things get complicated." Arbitra Prime watched him carefully. "Yes," she said, "that is why I am interested." Time behaved differently aboard her vessel. Ethan noticed it gradually, not as distortion but as absence. No clocks, no cycles, no artificial markers demanding awareness. The ship operated on relevance rather than duration. Moments expanded or collapsed based on necessity. It was unsettling. For the first time since stepping aboard, Ethan felt something close to unease. Arbitra Prime noticed immediately. "Your internal rhythm is destabilizing," she said, standing across from him within the observation chamber. "You rely on temporal anchors more than you realize." "Most people do," Ethan replied. "Otherwise, you start asking questions you don't have answers for." She studied him in silence. "You are adapting," she said. "Not really," he answered. "I'm just not fighting it." That, she realized, was the problem. Most subjects struggled against unfamiliar systems. Their resistance produced data, fear spikes, emotional feedback, survival behaviors. Ethan produced none of it. His mind adjusted by subtraction, not escalation. She turned slightly, activating the chamber. The walls softened, losing their sharp geometry. The light warmed by a fraction, barely perceptible but intentional. "This environment is calibrated to induce compliance," she said. "Reduced cognitive strain increases honesty." "And you're telling me this because?" Ethan asked. "Because the calibration is failing." He raised an eyebrow. "On me or on you?" Her gaze sharpened. "Do not mistake transparency for weakness." "I don't," he said calmly. "I mistake it for confidence." That landed harder than he intended. She stepped closer. Distance between them meant little to her. Her authority filled space regardless, but proximity did something unexpected. The closer she came, the more the predictive models fractured. Subtle inconsistencies stacked upon one another, compounding into a widening margin of error. She was not accustomed to margin. "You do not attempt to appeal to me," she said. "You have not asked what I value. You have not sought leverage." Ethan shrugged. "Didn't think I had any." "You do," she replied. "You simply refuse to use it." That stopped him. "Explain," he said. She hesitated. That too was new. "You disrupt expectation," she said finally. "Species survive by anticipating authority, by aligning behavior with reward structures. You do neither." "So what?" Ethan said. "You're saying I'm bad at playing the game." "Yes," she replied, "and that makes you dangerous." The word hung between them. Dangerous, not powerful, not threatening. Dangerous because systems could not account for him. She circled him slowly, her presence constant, precise. Ethan stayed where he was, resisting the urge to turn with her, not out of defiance, but trust in stillness. "You understand the implications of my uncertainty," she said. "Extended hesitation increases collateral risk. Entire civilizations rely on resolution." "I know," Ethan replied quietly. "Yet you continue to behave in ways that delay it." He met her gaze. "I don't think you're afraid of making the wrong decision," he said. "I think you're afraid of making the only one." Her eyes flickered. For a fraction of a second, so brief it would have escaped any lesser perception, her composure fractured. She stopped moving. "That assumption is inaccurate," she said, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. "You were created to decide," Ethan continued, "not to wonder, and now you are." Silence. The chamber dimmed, reacting to a surge in internal recalibration. The ship itself adjusted, as if bracing. "No subject has ever induced this level of internal conflict," she said softly. "Your continued presence threatens systemic integrity." "So send me back," Ethan said. Her gaze snapped to him. "You would return to extinction." "If that's the call," he replied. "Yeah." Her eyes searched his face, expecting hesitation, bravado, regret. There was none. "You are willing to accept annihilation," she said, "without negotiation." "I'm willing to accept reality," he answered, "whatever that is." Something shifted. Not in the ship, in her. She turned away sharply, moving toward the far edge of the chamber. For the first time, she put distance between them deliberately. "Human Ethan Cole," she said, her voice controlled but altered. "Your evaluation status has been elevated." "To what?" he asked. She paused before answering. "To influence." The word carried weight. "From this point forward," she continued, "your interactions will be considered when determining humanity's outcome." Ethan absorbed that slowly. "That sounds like a bad idea," he said. "Yes," she replied, "which is why it cannot be ignored." The chamber began to shift again, preparing for transition. As the walls reconfigured, Ethan spoke one last time. "For what it's worth," he said, "I don't think you're broken." She stopped at the threshold. "What do you think I am?" He hesitated just once. Someone who was never supposed to be questioned. She didn't turn back, but her silence followed him long after the chamber closed. The ship initiated recalibration protocols without announcing them. That alone told Arbitra Prime something had gone wrong. Systems that had operated flawlessly for millennia began rerouting processes, minor at first, then increasingly inefficient. Predictive loops recycled. Outcome models refused convergence. Probability trees bloomed into unresolved complexity, all because one human existed in the wrong place. Ethan felt it before he understood it. The air pressure shifted. Not enough to alarm, but enough to register. The floor's subtle responsiveness lagged by a fraction of a second. The ship was no longer anticipating perfectly. "Your vessel is compensating," Ethan said quietly. She turned to him sharply. "You perceive that?" "Yeah," he replied. "Feels like a system trying not to admit it needs help." That should not have been possible. No non-accord intelligence had ever detected internal recalibration in real time. Her ship was an extension of her cognition, closed, sovereign, absolute. And yet Ethan had noticed. You are no longer a passive variable, she said. Your influence has exceeded safe thresholds. So I broke something, he asked. She didn't answer immediately. That delay, measured in microseconds, sent a cascade through her internal hierarchy. Authority was meant to be instantaneous. Delay implied doubt. Doubt propagated risk. Yes, she said finally. You did. The chamber lights dimmed further, responding to her rising cognitive load. Symbols along the walls lost coherence, reforming themselves with visible hesitation. Ethan frowned. That bad. For the first time, she said, my judgment processes are no longer isolated. What does that mean? It means, she said carefully, that my decisions are now subject to context. Ethan let out a slow breath. Welcome to being human. That was the moment, not when she looked at him, not when the ship faltered, but when she recognized the truth embedded in the statement. Context. She had been created to remove it. Her existence was built on clarity, binary outcomes, optimized resolutions, clean endings. Entire civilizations reduced to data because nuance slowed survival. And now nuance stood in front of her, unarmed and unafraid. You were not designed for this role, she said. Neither were you, Ethan replied. You just got stuck with it. The ship shuddered once. A deep harmonic resonance rolled through the hull, far below the threshold of sound but heavy enough to feel in bone. Alert protocols ignited. Arbitra Prime closed her eyes. That too was new. External interference had been detected. The Galactic Accord had noticed the deviation. They are responding, she said. My hesitation has triggered oversight. Meaning? Ethan asked. Meaning they will not tolerate uncertainty. The chamber walls shifted, projecting a vast holographic field. Dozens of presence signatures ignited within it, remote consciousness nodes cold and precise. Observers, judges of the judge. They will vote, she continued. Not on humanity. Ethan felt his chest tighten. On you. Yes. The realization hit him harder than extinction ever had. You're the variable now, he said. Her gaze met his. And you are the cause. For the first time, fear surfaced in him. Not for himself, but for her. What happens if they decide you're compromised? He asked, her voice lowered. I will be decommissioned. Silence followed. Not the heavy silence of threat, but the intimate silence of truth finally spoken aloud. They'll erase you, Ethan said. Yes, and humanity. She hesitated. That will be resolved efficiently. He clenched his jaw. So I didn't save anyone, he said quietly. I just moved the target. Her eyes softened, not emotionally but structurally. Something rigid within her cognition bent. You revealed a flaw, she said. In me, in the system. That's not a crime, he said. In my civilization, she replied, it is the only one. The observer's presence intensified. The ship's autonomy shrank as external authority pressed inward. Time, real time, returned with a vengeance. You need to decide, Ethan said. Not about humanity, about yourself. She studied him. You would have me resist the accord. I'd have you choose, he said. Not because it's efficient, because it's yours. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, slowly, she did something no judge had ever done. She reached out and touched him, just 2 fingers against his wrist. Not a gesture of affection, a day to exchange. Her consciousness brushed his not to invade but to feel, unfiltered, human uncertainty, human resolve, human acceptance of imperfect outcomes. The ship's system screamed in protest. The observers reacted instantly, but it was already too late. She withdrew her hand. Her eyes burned brighter than before, not with power but with decision. They are arriving, she said. There will be consequences. Ethan met her gaze. Yeah, he said, there always are. The ship's course shifted trajectory, not away from Earth, toward confrontation. The observers did not arrive with ships. They arrived with presence. Reality itself tightened as the Accord's consciousness nodes asserted authority, their combined awareness pressing against Arbitra Prime's vessel like a closing fist. Space around them stabilized into rigid geometry, clean, absolute, unforgiving. Ethan felt it immediately. "Feels like the room just decided it hates us," he said. Arbitra Prime stood beside him, posture calm, eyes fixed on the expanding field of luminous forms before them. Each represented a civilization older than humanity, colder than necessity, bound together by one shared belief. "Order must not hesitate. You are no longer required to speak," one of the observers transmitted. Their voices did not echo, they simply were. "Your function has been compromised." Arbitra Prime did not bow. "I have fulfilled my function," she replied evenly. "I have identified instability." "Within yourself," another presence responded. "Yes," she said, "and within the Accord." That drew attention. A recalibration ripple passed through the observer field, surprise masked as algorithmic reassessment. "You exceeded permitted parameters," they continued. "You allowed influence." "I encountered context," she said. "You designed me without accounting for it." Silence followed, then, "Context is inefficiency." Ethan shifted slightly. "You ever consider," he said, speaking before he could stop himself, "that inefficiency is just what you call things you can't control yet?" The pressure intensified. Arbitra Prime raised one hand not to silence him but to acknowledge the risk. "You see," she said to the observers, "even now he does not plead, he does not posture, he does not seek permission." "You have bonded," they accused. Her response was immediate. "No," she said, "I have learned." That was worse. Learning implied change. Change implied unpredictability. Unpredictability was unacceptable. "Your existence is no longer aligned with Accord stability," the observers concluded. Decommission sequence approved. Ethan's chest tightened. "So that's it," he asked quietly. "You get erased for thinking." She looked at him then. Really looked at him. "No," she said softly, "I am not erased." She stepped forward. The vessel responded, not with obedience but with choice. "I am relinquishing my role." The observers reacted instantly, attempting override, but authority slipped through their grasp like water. "You cannot abdicate," they transmitted. "Your function is integral." "Functions can end," she replied. "Meaning does not." The chamber shook as controls severed. For the first time since the Accord's creation, a judge stepped outside judgment. "What happens to humanity?" Ethan asked. Arbitra Prime turned to him. "They will observe," she said. "Without me, they must decide whether to act." "That's not reassuring." "No," she agreed, "but it is fair." The observers withdrew, not defeated but unsettled. Their certainty fractured not by force but by precedent. The pressure eased. Silence returned. Real silence this time. The ship stabilized into a new trajectory, no longer tethered to the Accord's command lattice. Ethan exhaled slowly. "So," he said, "what now?" Arbitra Prime looked out toward the stars. "I no longer decide the fate of species," she said. "I am unassigned." "That sounds dangerous." "Yes," she replied, "and unfamiliar." She turned back to him. "You altered the outcome without issuing a command," she said. "You refuse to perform." "Guess I'm consistent," he said. A pause, then quietly, "You may return to Earth," she said. "Your species will continue, for now." "And you?" Her gaze lingered, not on him, but on the vast unknown beyond the viewport. "I will observe," she said, "without authority, without certainty." Ethan nodded. "That might be harder." "Yes." The vessel slowed. A new silence settled between them, not tense, not heavy, shared. Before he left, Ethan stopped at the threshold. "For what it's worth," he said, "you did the right thing." She met his eyes. "There may be no such thing," she said, "only chosen consequences." He smiled faintly. "Welcome to being human." Something almost like understanding crossed her expression. As Earth came back into view, the ship adjusted its course, lingering just a moment longer than necessary, not watching the planet, watching him. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of old rules, a former judge considered a future no system had prepared her for.
Can I get a picture?
Yeah, man, why not? Yeah.
Can I go with you?
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take care.
You are famous. El
A
famoso.
huevo, pidieron fotos, güey, a huevo. Me siento famoso, güey. Ajá. Ya me puedo retirar de hacer streams, güey. Ay, porque soy el único pendejo que trae cosplay de Maid,
Se
güey.
veían bien pajeros los vatos.
Sí, güey, la neta sí.
Club de fans.
Ya tengo club de fans a huevo.
Sí, retírate.
Ya me retiro. Adiós.